I think this coronavirus panic is actually now showing us a bit how timid Australians have become, timid and prone to panic. Just 8 new infections in the day to about, 3:30 today. That means your chance of having been one of those sick people is about 1 in 3 million. Yet you've still got to stay in your home. Can't take that chance. The Prime Minister even says he's not even going to think about lifting those stay-home bans and work restrictions for another 3 weeks.
We've got to where we are quicker than we thought we would, and I'm hoping we're able to get to where we want to be quicker than we might have originally estimated. But we've got to take that day by day, and we can't get impatient about it. Impatience on these things could lead to an even worse situation, which would mean you'd have to lock down again. And if you had to do that, then the economic pain would be worse, and that's what I'm also trying to avoid.
Poor bloke looks a bit tired there, so I feel a bit bad saying this, but I owe it to you. Look, a politician can't lose with arguments like that. They exaggerate the danger, then they overreact, and then if nothing like the worst happens, they say, see, I saved you. I saved you. And if I lift these bans, if we admit we overreacted, then even worse things will happen. But small mercies. I said 3 weeks ago that the government's talk of keeping all these bans for 6 months was insane. Some of these bans were clearly unnecessary even back then. Well, 3 weeks on, big surprise, the government is now talking of maybe just 3 weeks more. And the Chief Medical Officer is also today pushing for change.
We certainly would not be contemplating large-scale gatherings, but certainly some relaxation of the size of small groups is possible. There are a range of measures that they've asked us to consider, things like community sport, some retail measures. All of those things will be in the mix. I personally feel that community sport is a really important thing, and there are ways to make it safer, but National Cabinet will have to weigh up the public health risks versus the clear benefits of re-establishing community sport.
Now, I'm sorry to keep harping on this issue, but there is no bigger one before us. Our economic future is disintegrating before our eyes. You have been stampeded by politicians who overreacted to dud models with dud Chinese data that was predicting up to 150,000 deaths here. And the price of this overreaction is ghastly. Nearly 1 million people now thrown out of work. Now, of course, I hear these stupid excuses. You know, oh no, the politicians didn't overreact, they saved us instead. But I will show you now proof, again, that the government did wildly overestimate the impact of this virus on this country, which is younger and fitter than most, more spread out, great health system. The proof is this. Today, we read that the government was so desperate for more ventilators that it even asked vets to give it some. And it bought another 3,000 on top of the 2,200 already had. All up, it hopes to soon have 7,000 ventilators. 7,000 ventilators. That's how many the government actually expected to need. But how many are actually being used now for coronavirus patients? It's not 7,000, 30, and falling. That tells you the government got it wrong. Now, understandably got it wrong, sure, and better safe than sorry, and, you know, prepare and all that kind of stuff, but it got it wrong. And the trouble now is that the Prime Minister and the Premiers simply won't admit it. And I have to ask, is there too much advantage in keeping this going? Before this virus crisis, the Prime Minister was savage for his handling of the bushfire crisis. People didn't even want to shake his hand. And I thought that was pretty poor stuff. But now, of the people criticising him, I have to say, but now Scott Morrison is the saviour of the nation. Approval ratings through the roof. He's in control. But here's the funniest thing. Kevin Rudd, probably our worst Prime Minister, a chronic big noter, a climate alarmist. But you know, one good thing about Kevin Rudd? Rudd did not overreact to the swine flu in 2009-10. the way that Scott Morrison and Victorian Premier Dan Andrews have overreacted now. The death toll so far from this coronavirus is 75. The death toll from the swine flu under Kevin Rudd was 191, more than double. Now, this coronavirus overwhelmingly kills the old and the sick, not one Australian under 40. But that swine flu in 2009 did also kill younger people, even kids. This was a virus. You might have thought that, yes, this goes beyond just locking off aged care homes and hospitals to protect the vulnerable. But back then, Kevin Rudd and the media never talked about stay-home rules. Even Kevin Rudd, Rudd did not panic, nor was there this same panic just 3 years ago when 1,255 Australians died of another influenza strain, 21 of them aged under 45. No panic then, although some nursing homes were locked down, and rightly. So, 1,255 people died just 3 years ago, and you probably don't even remember that. But just 75 people have died so far this year, and you'll never forget that because of these restrictions and these mass shutdowns and this economic devastation. No, I agree. This virus is more dangerous than the swine flu and probably more dangerous than the 2017 flu. And yes, so therefore, some of these bans were necessary. I've supported them all along, absolutely. But we have overreacted. Why won't our leaders admit it and start easing bans now?